Okay, as we are attending class, I'm sure there'll be a few questions. Did anybody just read an email that I sent out? Anybody get a chance? Anybody hear me? Put a thumbs up if you're able to. All right. Did anybody get a chance to read the email that I just sent out? No?
I just skimmed it a little bit. So
Okay.
you're going to have an in-person class, basically?
In the spring, yeah. I'm kind of excited. So we're going to have, I have a Tuesday morning, like from 8 to 10:40. And that's Anatomy 1. And then Anatomy 2 will be on Wednesday night. I like to leave my office here at about 6, a little bit after, and get there at 6:30-ish and open the lab. And it takes a good 2 hours. So if somebody gets there at 6:30, we're done by 9. I don't like being there till 9:40. It's too late. It's almost 10 o'clock. But we can get material done and actually get everything that needs to be done in that, in that 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
And how much is added on with Anatomy 2? Like, is it way more complicated than Anatomy 1?
It's different material. It kind of brings everything together. We start with blood, then we do the heart. We actually have a sheep's heart, so we're able to look at the heart and see the valves. We're going to do the lung, and we'll look at slides. Then we have models. Then we'll do circulation. We'll do the kidney. In that course, it seems that like muscles are maybe some of the harder part for this course. In that course, the endocrine, learning the different hormones and what their action and production site, that seems to be a little bit of that's a little hard. It's just a lot of work. But if you have a board in front of you and you can show, like I like to show, like the adrenal gland, and we have adrenaline is made there, and it's for short, fast fight flight type of activities. And
awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've done that. I'm learning to enjoy Anatomy 1, but Anatomy 1 is a lot of, I'm not going to say boring, it's just a lot of work, a lot of memorization. Is what it is. Anatomy 2, there's the memorization, but now you're putting the whole body together. So for a lot of everybody, a lot of those in the class, it's a good course. We do slides, so that's one of the things that we do, and we end in reproduction. So I had a student who had been with me in Anatomy 1. And I asked if anybody had any health issues. So she kind of comes up, says, Dr. Byrne, I'm pregnant. I go, oh, congratulations. So by the time we were in Anatomy 2, we were doing reproduction. I'd say, well, you got to go and teach this part. The baby's being born and all of that. So she actually had the baby like a week before the final. And she was my top-notch student. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I kidded her about that. So I said, yeah, you got to teach us since you know all about this now. Not that she did, but it was kind of neat. Yeah, it was fun. So I think we enjoyed that class. But when you have somebody in Anatomy 1 and then you can have them in Anatomy 2, you already know them somewhat. There's 3 practicals, just like what we have. In the past, we used to give the quizzes where I'd ask questions and hold something up. I think I'm going to use the quizzes that are online and allow the students to do it that way. It won't take away time from class. That'll be nice. And you can do it, where it's a little quieter and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be good. All right. So it's already 7:02. So I think our Tuesday night class, we tend to get a few more people. But what I wanted to do is, I don't want you to be afraid of all the material we're going to talk about. We need to talk about, in general, what are some of these various muscles. So let me see if I can be the model. Okay, so if I'm standing and I move back a little bit, or at least get to a point where anatomically you can see me. So if we talk about the latissimus dorsi, it's on the back, it's dorsal, and it's going to run from the iliac crest and all the way up, up the spine, come underneath and attach in the front. So when we talk about, excuse me, I got a tickle, these 2 points, it'll allow me to adduct and extend my arm. Don't worry about writing things down because I'm going to give you numbers and we'll put that down later on. But the lat is what gives a very narrow waist to men. Okay, like Sylvester Stallone really worked on having a very narrow waist, and that was the latissimus dorsi. So it's lateral and it's dorsal. So that's where that comes in. Pectoralis major is right here, and hidden underneath it is pec minor. So pec major is going to connect to this bone here, which we call a clavicle, in the sternum, in the ribs, and it'll connect out to the humerus. So if these 2 points do what? Shorten. I've gone from anatomical, I've adducted, but I've also flexed my arm, my upper arm. Okay, and we'll go over all these in detail. The deltoid is on the side, and it's going to come across the acromion, the part of the clavicle, and the spine of the scapula comes to a point called the acromion, and then it attaches to the deltoid tuberosity. And if these 2 points come together, what did I do to my arm? I ABDUCT, I abducted, okay? So with any, like in this muscle, I could have just the front work or the middle or the posterior, but if they work all at one time, I've abducted. So those are 3. My biceps here in this area, it does 2 things. It connects up to the glenoid area here, and it goes to the radial tuberosity. And if I shorten, I flex my what? I flex my forearm, but I also can do what? Supinate. So remember the little bone, remember the radial head that it rotated in there? That's what your biceps does. And if I rip this, there are some people that their bicep tendon rips. They're lifting something heavy and it'll snap. And then right underneath it is a muscle called brachialis. And it'll allow for me to still flex if I tear one of the heads of the bicep. Okay. Tricep is where? In the back. So it'll come off the upper part of the humerus, but also the scapula, connect to the olecranon. So if you give somebody an elbow, it's an extensor. So from this position, that's flexion. Going backwards is extension. When I come together, I've adducted. And if I go away, I ABDUCT is what I've actually done. Okay. What was the muscle? What was the boxing muscle? Does anyone remember from last week? Remember the guy running and here I'm just trying to run. And
is it the serratus?
Serratus, yeah. So it goes up. There's one other that does the same thing, and it was not pec major. It was the little one underneath that goes to the coracoid process, to the ribs, pectoralis minor. It'll also abduct, okay, is what it'll do. All right. So brachialis is underneath the biceps. Biceps would be on top. How do I know it's the bicep? I'm looking at a muscle. How do I know, Leah, that that would be my bicep? Bicep means what?
Two origins?
2 heads. Two heads. So I'm going to have 2 of them. Like with latissimus dorsi, it's lateral and on the dorsal part. And what was the muscle that looked like a rhomboid shape in between my shoulder blades called?
Rhomboid.
Rhomboid muscle. And what was the name of the muscle up here that attached to my zygomaticus that'll let me smile? What was the name of that muscle? Zygomatic muscle, right? Okay, so it's just repetition is what we need to do. All right, my wrist. On this part, when I go like this, actually when we're looking, if I take my wrist and I go up, I flexed. So wrist flexors are on this side, and then wrist extensors are on that side. Does everybody kind of follow? So let's take a look at these and let's put numbers to them. Okay, so what I would like you to do is take your little sheets that we have and let's see if we can put a number down. And then before we do that, how many of you look at the old labs that I've uploaded into in your lab? Alec, do you look at those? They kind of gives you answers? Because I haven't done that for I haven't done that for the neurology one yet. But if people are looking at that and it's a good way of learning some of the material, I'll go and make sure I upload some of those older labs.
I use it to check my work because I'll do it over and over again to like memorize it.
Right.
So I find them useful.
Okay, so I'll make sure I get those in on the neurology when we get to that point. Okay, for action, start with 1, flex and supinates. And the one that flex and supinates your forearm is your biceps, okay? But right from 1 to 8 on the left. And then starting on origin and insertions, go from 9 to 17. So we want to do that. Okie dokie. So once we've got that, if everybody can show me your smiling face, that'll help me. Because I don't see Taylor and I don't see Rachel or Tara. Some of you guys are here, I think, but I just see, there we are. We're hiding. Taylor's hiding. Don't hide on me. I'll call you out. That's what I'll do. You got to look at me, so I got to look at you guys. All right. So the origin, my arm is the most movable part of that muscle, right? So the origin is 17. That means it's going to be like here in the back, the ilium, and all the way up from L5, all the way up to the mid-thoracic. And then it inserts up here in my humerus. So the insertion is 16, the tubercle of the humerus. And so if these two parts come together, I've adducted and extended. So if I wanted to, let's say, row and do that movement, what's going to happen to my waist? Alec, what did I say about Sylvester Stallone? His waist does what? Gets real narrow because there's one on each side, correct? So it'll pull your waist in. And in doing that movement, you're going to be using the lat to extend. I adduct and extend when I'm rowing, but I'm also going to do what with my pec? I'm going to be pulling, okay? So it'll really build you up. So Alec, if you want to look like Sylvester Stallone, you need to row a boat. You ladies don't need to do that, okay? All right, so adduct and extend. Pectoralis major, it's going to go, origin is 12 and 11, and it inserts into 16. And number 5 is its action. It will flex and adduct. So we need to get a rowing machine, Alec. We need to get a good rowing machine so we can kind of exercise that way. And deltoid, the origin is 10 and 11. And it inserts on the most movable part of my humerus. And what did we call that? It was some tuberosity. What was the name of the tuberosity, Leah? You remember? It goes to the deltoid muscle has a what kind of tuberosity there?
Deltoid tuberosity.
Deltoid tuberosity. So all of these little names that we have and all the little points are just showing you where they're at. So it kind of gives you an idea. So if you're not sure what the action is, we'll just shorten both parts and see where the fibers are, and that'll tell you what you're doing. All right, my biceps, the origin is 13, the insertion is 15, and the action is flex and supinate my arm. So in other words, remember the radial head, it'll rotate, it's a pivot. So that's what we have there. So biceps allows me to flex my arm, but it allows me to supinate. This is pronate my hand, that's supinate. My triceps is origin 13, insertion is 14, which would be the olecranon, the bony part, and it's an extensor. So if you're ever watching the roller derby on TV and those girls are going in a circle, they're real rough. So they always do what to the girl behind them? Give them an elbow and knock them on their fanny. So if you're That's what they do, Tara. They hit them with their elbow and they go flying backwards. And that would be the triceps. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Brachialis, I just tore the muscles of my bicep and it'll roll up just like a shade, like roll up. And brachialis is underneath it and it's a flexor. So all you need to know is number 3. It flexes the forearm. And then as a group, the hand extensors are on the dorsum, they extend. And that's number 8. And then on the flexor side, the hand or wrist flexors right here, we do it this way so you get an idea. So if I go like that, I've just flexed my wrist. Those are my wrist flexors, and that's number 7. So that should get us through the first page. So let's go over the muscles again. What's the name of the muscle that is on my back that's lateral and dorsal? Latissimus dorsi, which is the one that fills out my chest and gives me a big chest here in the front. What's this muscle right here? Pectoralis major. What's the one that makes a triangle on the side? Deltoid. So when you look at the delta, D-E-L-T-A, that's in New Orleans, it's a triangle. Does everybody kind of follow? So it's got a broad base and it goes to a little point. So the deltoid is named for that shape. Does everybody follow? Okay. Biceps have 2 heads. They're on the flexor side and they supinate my forearm, but they flex my forearm, do they not? Okay. What did pectoralis major do? It went from my chest, and you can see these fibers on the model, and it runs this way. It will adduct and flex. So it brings your arm together towards the midline is what it'll do. And we're going to hopefully be able to look at those later. Okay. Is anybody unduly upset with these muscles? Can we go to page 2? All right. All right, let's go to page 2. There's a muscle. I just want to kind of talk a little bit about them. I'm not going to get into origin insertion. I'll talk about them, and then we're going to go and we're going to give you numbers, and then I'll give you the origin insertion and the action. And then later on, hopefully we can go and screen share and take a look at them. Deep inside my abdomen, deep inside here by my belly button, but deep inside is a muscle that is called the psoas, and it runs from deep inside down to my hip. And then inside my ilium is a muscle called the ilius. And so these two together run from a little bit above my belly button on an angle to my hip. So it actually allows me to raise my hip, allows me to move my hip up. That's flexion of my thigh, but it's deep inside. So people come into my office and they have back pain, but they also have spasm of either one of these muscles deep inside. So when you get to this muscle called the iliopsoas, look for a long muscle that's inside the ilium that runs to the hip. So if you're trying to do a bent knee sit-up, that's the proper way to do the sit-up, and you're not using this iliopsoas. If your knees are not bent and you're trying to do a sit-up, you're using rectus abdominis, but also this muscle. All right, where's your gluteus maximus? Renee, where's your gluteus maximus? Is there anybody sitting on a gluteus maximus? Trinity, do you think you might be?
Yes.
I think we all are. All right, so this is, I want everybody to stand up. You got to do this. Humor me. Okay, no, serious. Take your hand, put it on your sacrum. You got to do this. Take your thumb, put it on the sacrum. Put your fingers on the greater trochanter. No, please. And then squeeze and see what happens to your leg. Let me see my leg. I'm squeezing. I got one here and one here. What happened to my leg? I did what? I extended my thigh, did I not? So from the sacrum out to that, greater trochanter, and you pinch, and you'll feel it's an extensor. So that's gluteus max. The medius, gluteus medius, is on my side, and it's going to attach on the side of my pelvic area right here. And here's my trochanter. So it allows me to bring it out to the side. That's called abduction. All right. When I learned this in anatomy, they said, think of your thigh as having 4 parts to it: a front, an inside, an outside, and a back. So any muscle that is on the front of my thigh, it's going to pull my thigh upward. So these muscles here on the front, they're flexors to my thigh. Those that are on the inside are adductors. I go to the middle. Those on the outside are abductors. They're taking my leg away. And the muscles on the back are extensors, okay? So we're going to find some muscles are going to kind of be between the front and the side. And so when we start looking at those, we're going to have like gluteus medius. It will abduct, but it can also help flex my thigh a little bit. But the main thing we want to know is it's on the side, it abducts. There are 4 muscles in the front of my thigh. So this is my thigh or my femur. What is this down below? Alec, what is this here? You're going to say calf, but what do we want to call this?
Anterior crest.
How about we just call it leg?
Oh, okay.
So here's my leg. What is this? That's my knee. This is my what? This is my thigh. Anything on the inside is an adductor. So in this whole huge list of these muscles that make you have gray hair and pull your hair out and lose sleep, one of them is called gracilis. It's a little tiny skinny muscle on the inside. It goes from the pubic symphysis down to the anterior part of my tibia. It's an adductor, but it also, so it brings my leg in is what it actually does. Okay, so it'll bring it in, but it also kind of flexes a little bit. I have 2 huge muscles on the inside of my leg that are called adductor, and one of them is large. So anything that's large, we call it magnus, or like, you know, gluteus maximus, or something like, in this case, we've got adductor magnus and adductor longus. So we're going to have huge, big muscles on the inside of my leg that are called adductors. One is large, it's magnus. The other is longer, it's longus. And so when you see a kicker in football trying to kick a ball, they're going to kick it with these muscles because they're strong. So any of the soccer style kickers that kick a football, they're using adductors. Years ago, they used to just kick straight on, and they find it's better if they use the adductor muscles. What are these muscles? Well, first of all, so the muscles in the front, there's 4 of them, and we call them what? Quadriceps. Quadriceps means 4. What about the muscles in the back? They're called hamstrings. So if the muscles in the front flex my thigh, some of them go to this tibial tuberosity. So if I flex my thigh and it keeps pulling, what did I do to my leg? I extended my leg. So we're going to find that these muscles in the front of your leg here, they're going to flex my, I know it's a lot of work, but we'll get through it. Don't worry. We're going to flex my thigh, but it goes and attaches here. So what did I just do to my leg? I extended it. Okay. And so that's what they do, the muscles, the quadriceps. What about the muscles in the posterior part, in the hamstring? What are they going to do? What are these muscles if I tighten? If this is flexion of my thigh, what happens when I go backwards?
Extension.
extension of my thigh. But look what happens. They go across. What did I just do to my leg?
Flex it.
I flexed my leg. Now, let me tell you something about anatomy. Besides, it's a lot of work. All right. When you're developing, have you noticed that your arm does this? Flexes? So in other words, my arm flexes this way. What does my knee do? When I move my knee, or my leg in this case, and I bring it up, what did I do? I flexed my what? I flexed my leg. Your lower extremity rotates. So in other words, my arms do what? They flex this way. What about my legs? My legs are the opposite. Do you see what I'm saying? So when you look at my leg, if this is flexion of my arm, this is flexion of my what? Of my leg. When I go out, that's extension of my leg. So your lower extremities in your development completely rotated in order for you to be able to stand and walk is what had to happen. All right, I know it probably will keep you up at night. I'm trying to understand this, but all right, let's go on to TFL. There's a muscle called tensor fasciae lata. It's on the outside of your thigh, and it's a tensor. Tensor means the muscle part. Fascia means that it's connective tissue, and it's lateral. So when I stand, and I'm standing here with you right now, when I stand, there's a little muscle on the side that's lateral that I can tighten, and it's just above my trochanter. It's called the TFL. So you might want to just write TFL, tensor fasciae lata. It allows me to abduct, allows me to take my leg away. So then it only gives us two more muscles. These two are the ones that are in your lower extremity. And so I don't know the easiest way to do this. I think I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to put my leg or my foot on the table. And if I have something in the front of my tibia and I contract it, what do I do to my toe? I dorsiflex. So tibialis anterior is in the front, in the tibia in the front part, and I am able to go and dorsiflex. If I look in the back, the muscles of my calf, if they tighten, then I plantar flex. So when I dorsiflex, it's the muscles in the front. And when I plantar flex, it's the muscles in the back. Okay, now that we're probably completely confused, let's look at the sheet. What we're going to do on page 2, under actions, it says extends knee. I want you to write wherever it says knee, right leg. So it should say extends leg. Does everybody kind of follow? So when you see the word knee, just write leg in there. That may help us. So we're going to number on their actions. We're going to number from 1 to 10, all the way down that line. Everybody, can you do that for me? And then under origin and insertions, start with 11 and work all the way down to sacrum. That'll be number 20. Okay, so we'll do that. All right, so let's talk about iliopsoas. Iliopsoas was the muscle deep in my belly, and its origin is part of the ilium, so that's 17. You do not need to know the insertion. What is the action? 8. So 8 is flexes hip or thigh. And so it's internal. That's the psoas part. And the ilius part is inside the ilium bone. So this bone on the side, remember your pelvis has 3 bones. It has an ilium. It has a pubic bone in the front and an ischium that you sit on. That makes up your pelvis, those 3. So the iliopsoas basically is a flexor. Origin 17, action 8. Gluteus maximus, origin 17 and 20, insertion 15, and it extends my thigh. So what we're saying is you'll be able to look at it. Here's my sacrum. And so I'm going to run from here to the trochanter, and it allows me to extend is what it does. So it's the big extender is what it is. So gluteus max, origin 17 and 20, which basically is the ilium and the sacrum and coccyx, and then it'll run out to basically it's going to run out to 15, and then it's going to be 10, which is extends thigh. All right, let's talk about these 1, 2, 3. There's 3 muscles of the 4 that make the quads. So let's go over them. I'll just name them. Rectus femoris, it's the femur. So it's rectus femoris. I then have a muscle that is going to be on the inside called vastus medialis. I have a muscle called vastus lateralis. And then there's one in between called vastus intermedius. The intermedius you do not need to know, but it's one of the, it helps make all 4. And so what do we call the muscles in the front of the thigh? Quadriceps. And so when we look at this, rectus femoris, 17. Insertion is 11. And so rectus femoris will flex. Rectus femoris flexes my thigh, but it goes to the tibial tuberosity. It extends my leg. So the action is 2. Extends, it says extends knee, but you want to put leg and flexes thigh. So when I put a look in here, you want to put number 2 for that, okay? So look what it does. It's on the front, I flex, but I extend my leg. So I'm flexing here, but there's 4 muscles that allow me to do that. So they're running from here to the tibial tuberosity is where it's going. So vastus lateralis is origin 15. The insertion is tibial tuberosity, which is 11. And so the action for this is extends the knee or the leg. Vastus medialis, the origin is 15. The insertion is 11. And so what it'll do is it's the action is number 1, extends the knee at the leg. So let's go back to rectus femoris. The action for that should be number 1 and number 2. So it extends the knee or leg and flexes the thigh. So you can put 1 and 2 in there. For vastus lateralis, the action is 1. For vastus medialis, the action is 1. And we'll go over these because we're going to look at them in a minute. Okay. So now that we've gotten through some of those, let's take a look in, let's say the 1600s. A lot of the ships were made with sails, were they not? So they were all sail powered by wind. And so a person had to sit and sew this canvas. And so in order to do that, they had to take their leg or their thigh and they had to raise it up and externally rotate it and pull the canvas on their lap and then sew it is what they would do. So this muscle is called sartorius, and its action is to cross your knee or leg. It's number 9. And so for me to do that, what'll have to happen is this muscle has to go from outside to inside. So it allows me to bring my leg up and twist it. And so this is what was needed in order to make a sail. So it's called sartorius. So an SATOR was a a male that would make a sail. And so sartorius is what does that. On the inside of the muscle or of your thigh, there are 3 more muscles that allow me to adduct: gracilis, adductor magnus, and adductor longus. And so they all do number 7. They adduct and flex the thigh. So for each, gracilis is skinny, adductor magnus is very thick, and adductor longus is skinny and long. Okay, so right now we're about halfway done. It gets better. On my backside of my thigh, there are 3 muscles. The lateral muscle of my thigh is called what? Biceps femoris. And so biceps femoris, let's take a look at this muscle. What was this here in my arm? What was this muscle called with the 2 heads? Biceps brachii, right? What is this muscle? And it's a what? Flexor. See a flexor? In my hamstrings on the lateral aspect is this muscle called biceps femoris. The action where I take my leg upward is what? Flexion of my leg. So when you think of the biceps, it's a flexor. And so what you need to know for the biceps, its origin, 13 and 15. You can write in its insertion, it's 18, but you got a little line through it, so you don't need to know that. But it's number 3. Number 3 says that I flex the leg, but I extend the thigh. Watch what I'm doing. So when my leg comes up like this, that's flexion. But I did what with my thigh? I extend here of my thigh, and I flex my leg. So if you look at it, is that any different than what I did with my arm? Not really. But remember, it's on the back side because things rotated. Okay. Inside there, in the hamstrings, there's a semitendinosus. It's a skinny muscle, and a thicker muscle called semimembranosus. The origin is 13 for both of them, and its action is the same as the biceps femoris. It's 3. So I extend my thigh and flex my leg. So for the basically when we look at it, the hamstrings, the action is 3 for all of them. Okay. All right. Gluteus medius. Gluteus medius is an abductor. It's on the side of my thigh, just like the tensor fascia lata. And it allows me to abduct, A-B-D-U-C-T, the thigh, number 6. Also on the outside is a little muscle that has a long band, and it's called TFL, tensor fascia lata. And so it's also number 6. It's an abductor of the thigh. And then we get down to the last 2. On my calf, how many of you ladies wear high heels? Occasionally you might do that, right? And your legs get well formed, and you can see 2 little knots of muscles. Those muscles are the gastroc, and they're in the back of your calf. So the gastroc origin is 16, the insertion is 12, and its action is 4. So the gastroc allows me to take my foot, and instead of dorsiflexing, it allows me to pull it down, and that's called plantar flex. So when you run, you dorsiflex and you plantar flex, do you not? So tibialis anterior is number 5. I dorsiflex, and gastroc, the origin is 16, the insertion is 12, and the action is 4, plantar flex. All right, I think what we would need to do at this point is see if we can look at a few photos and see if it makes any sense. So let's see if we can do that. So hang with me and let's see if we can actually do that. Okay. Can anybody see this photo? Or am I the only one that can see it? Can anybody?
I can see it.
Is everybody able to see this? Okay. So this is how we're going to learn this stuff. I'll show you these muscles on the model. And I've got a basically, let me see if I can get it in there. All right, here we are. And I've got this little arrow. Can anybody see the arrow? Or am I the only one? Okay. Does anybody see an arrow that I'm flying around here?
Yes.
Number 2, gluteus maximus. So when you look at what makes up the majority of your buttock, Leah, is this muscle, okay? And then on this area up in here, we're looking, this is on the side. And then remember the tensor fascia lata, the band that I was just talking about? We're going to see that it's going to probably be up in this area. This is gluteus maximus. This is gluteus medius. And let's see if we can get to that. Okay, I just want to see if I can get to the next picture. Okay, let's see if we're able to move this over. All right, we should be able to. Can everybody still hear me okay? Is everybody
Yes.
able to? Okay, all right. So what I was hoping that we could do is to be able to go from here to the next photo. In one moment, we'll see, normally on the side, there should be a little arrow. We'll go backwards 1 second. Okay, we're still here. Stay with me. Let's see if we can open this up. We'll give it a moment. So on lab 9, it goes over these muscles. The muscles are the hardest part, obviously. So we're going to take a look at them and see if we can get some of them down. Okay, we'll see if we can do that in just a moment. We'll give it a. All right, we got one open. If we're looking at this and we want to get orientated, what we've got here is this top area. This is gluteus maximus. And when we're looking over on this, muscle number 1 is the, let me see if I can get it. Can anybody see it, or are we back to the small picture again?
I see the small pictures.
Okay, all right, let me see if I can get it open again. We'll just wait, it's a little slow. It says error. Let me open, try again, see if it'll open.
Professor, could you not because we can go into course content and see all these slides. So
Yeah.
could you also do that?
You might be able to, but when I've tried it in the past, it hadn't allowed me.
okay.
Right now, we're able to do this, so it looks like it's starting to work. So I just opened it up. What we're looking at here is the upper arm. Number one is the deltoid. It's a triangular shape. And so up in here, you're going to have the acromion. You're going to have the spine of the scapula and the clavicle. And it's going to go down to the deltoid tuberosity. This is an abductor of your shoulder. When we look in the back, number two is the tricep. It's got 3 heads. It will insert on your elbow at basically the olecranon and allows you to extend. The muscle number 3 in here is your biceps. It will have 2 heads, and it's a flexor and a supinator of your arm and forearm. And then brachialis is the next one. Brachialis is underneath the biceps. So 4 brachialis, 3 biceps, 2 triceps, 1 is your deltoid. So when we're looking at it that way, deltoid, triceps, biceps, notice it says brachii, and they're talking about the brachial region. And then the brachialis, when we go back, is this area in here. That's the brachialis muscle. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. What we're looking at is the hand. And so this is the top of the hand. 2 are extensors of your hand. Any of the muscles on the undersurface are flexors of your hand. Hand flexors as a group, hand extensors. So when we're looking this way, here's your thumb. You extend back or you flex forward. Okay, so this would be flexion on 1, extension on 2. What we're looking at is the muscle that I tried to describe. It's called the ilio. Number 1, this is the ilium. This is the iliopsoas. This muscle, these 2 join together, they go to your hip. This muscle that runs from the outside to the inside is sartorius. This skinny muscle on the inside is called gracilis. You will have a hard time telling the difference between the next muscle. It's called adductor magnus and longus, but it'll be this one. This is the front. This is part of the quadriceps. So it was showing the iliopsoas as this muscle inside. The ilium part, ILIO, and the psoas part. This is what we were looking at before. This is your gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, and this is the iliotibial band. We'll find a little tiny muscle called the tensor fasciae lata. You'll have to look at these in order to get them. Gluteus medius, gluteus max. So when you pinch your butt from the sacrum out to the trochanter, that's maximus. Take that off, here's medius. This extends, this abducts. This is the tensor fasciae lata, number 1. So this little area right here attaches to this iliotibial band. The band is named for where it connects, from the ilium to the tibia. And so this tensor is the muscle. It's called tensor fasciae lata. It'll allow this to abduct and flex a little bit. TFL, tensor fasciae lata. Again, these are your hamstrings. And if you look for the lateral part, this is the biceps femoris. And in here, you've got 2 of the muscles called semitendinosus and semimembranosus. 3 is the thicker membranosus, and the tendinosus is skinny like a tendon. So semitendinosus, and this one 3, semimembranosus. So these make up what are going to be called your hamstrings. Biceps femoris, biceps is a flexor. The tendinosus is skinny, and the membranosus is broader. Now we're looking on the inside of the thigh, and we're able to see this one here. This is sartorius. And then we're going to have this number 2, which is going to be gracilis. And number 1 is going to be an adductor. So adductor magnus was what they said was 1. Let's go back. So they said that's adductor magnus is this one here. Let's go back just to double. There's biceps, semitendinosus. We'll go forward. So we got 1, 2, 3. Adductor magnus, gracilis, adductor longus. The only way you can tell the adductor is they're on the inside, and the gracilis is the first one. So number 2 is gracilis. And so it's even hard for me on these adductor magnus and longus. So that wouldn't really be a fair question. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This one here is sartorius. This is the front of the quadriceps. Here's your kneecap. This is lateral, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis. And this is rectus femoris. So sartorius is the one that allows you to flex and externally rotate your knee to make a sail. And then 2, 3, and 4 are parts of what are called the quads, quadriceps. And so this is your rectus femoris, the outer area right in here. The reason I can tell this is outer is that that's your pubic symphysis right up there. So this is vastus lateralis, vastus medialis. So sartorius, and then these make up the 3 of the 4 quads. Okay, getting down into the easier part. This is your ankle. This is the tibia, tibialis anterior, and it dorsiflexes the top of your foot. This is the gastroc muscle. So when you ladies are wearing high heels, these muscles have a lot of tension, and it gives good shape to your lower leg or your calf. And this plantar flexes, so it allows you to move your foot down is what it actually does. So your toe can go down or plantar flex with that muscle, and it comes up with the tibialis anterior. So gastroc and tibialis anterior. All right, this is a little bit of review. These are some of the muscles that you're supposed to have down from last time. This is a muscle that's around on the temporal bone is called temporalis. This area around your jaw is called the masseter. You smile with the zygomaticus running from the zygomatic bone to the angle. This is orbicularis oris, oral, and this is orbicularis oculi. The muscles that are in the back of your head are the splenius, and then the muscles coming up in through here is sternocleidomastoid going to the mastoid region. This is your rectus abdominis in the front, and then you have internal and external obliques. And then these little muscles with the little sharp edge are called serratus anterior, and the chest will fill out with the pectoralis major muscle up a little higher. This is looking at the back, starting at the bottom. Gluteus maximus is here. Gluteus medius is on an angle. This cut right here is part of the latissimus that attaches up into your shoulder. So this latissimus dorsi is lateral and dorsal, and it goes up into the front of your shoulder. This triangular area right in here is a triangle called the trapezius muscle. This little muscle coming up in here off the scapula is the levator. It elevates your scapula. This is the back of your neck. This is splenius. This is a rhomboid shape here, and minor and major, just call them rhomboid. It'll adduct your scapula. This is the front. This one's the front. It's the biceps here, the deltoid up here, pectoralis major, and this is looking basically looking from behind, it looks like. And so this would be part of your tricep in the back. And this is looking at the leg. So the one that runs across and allows you to rotate and flex your your thigh and leg is sartorius. This is rectus femoris. This is lateral, it's vastus lateralis. This is on the inside, vastus medialis. And then down below, looking here in the front, tibialis anterior, and the gastroc has two heads that are in the back. That's that one there. On the other side, as we're looking on the lateral, you're going to have the biceps femoris is lateral, and then semitendinosus is the skinnier muscle, and the semimembranosus is going to be just behind it. So we've got membranosus down in here, the deeper, and this other one is semitendinosus. The only way to get some of this stuff down is to go and review these things multiple times. But this is the hardest part of this practical. And so what you want to do is, and I've got it already set up, you've got 10 attempts on this lab. So you got plenty of opportunity, but what you have to do is look at the picture, and just like on the biceps, what does the biceps do? The main thing to know is that the biceps allows you to flex and supinate your forearm, or abduct your shoulder, or serratus anterior, raise your shoulders up. So in other words, we just added about another 20, 25 muscles, did we not? All right, let's take a look at sheet 3, okay? Is anybody with me still? Let's take a look. On sheet 3, it says flex humerus. How do I flex my humerus? With my, which muscle? The one here in front, one of them would be biceps or brachialis, okay? How do I give somebody an elbow if I'm doing the roller derby and I'm roller skating and these people are coming up behind? I give an elbow with my triceps in the back, okay? And then how do I bring my arm up? Abduct, the deltoid, right there. And if you're not sure, put your hand on it and feel it shorten. I just abducted. So you can check them. How do I adduct my arm, my humerus? I adduct with pectoralis major is what I actually do, okay? How do I flex my elbow? With what? Biceps brachii. How do I extend my elbow? With my what? Triceps, okay? How do I flex my hand, or how do I flex my forearm? With the muscles. Everybody do this right now. Take your hand, put it right by your palm, and then flex your wrist. Feel the muscle. That's the group, that's the flexor group. How do I extend? Put it on the back side. Feel it extend. So what it's doing is it's tightening up on that side, okay? All right, let's get into, and I know you haven't memorized them, but what we're going to do is just talk a little bit about them. How do I flex my thigh? With the muscles deep in my belly. Iliopsoas allows me to do that. Sartorius is another one. So iliopsoas, sartorius, and they allow me to flex my thigh. How do I extend my thigh? With my big muscle in my butt. What's my big muscle in my butt? It's called the what? Gluteus max. And in the hamstrings, I have semitendinosus, semimembranosus, and the bicep. So just put hamstring for that. How do I adduct? So let's pretend this is my leg. Here's my leg and here's my thigh. How do I adduct them? Well, first of all, how do I ABDUCT? How do I bring them apart? The gluteus medius is one, gluteus medius, and tensor fasciae lata, TFL. They allow me to pull. So when I stand up and I want to take my legs away, I have to contract something on the lateral. So remember, what did I say? I have muscles on the front that allow me to flex. I have muscles on the side that allow me to ABDUCT. I have muscles on the inside that allow me to adduct. And in the posterior, they call them compartments. I have a posterior compartment. It allows me to extend my thigh. So if you look at it that way, all you got to do is figure out, well, what muscle is in that compartment. So I have an anterior compartment. I got a lateral compartment. I got an inside or a medial compartment. And then I have a posterior compartment. Okay. How do I cross my leg? Where if I'm going to make a sail and I've got thousands, let's say hundreds of feet of canvas, I got to pull this up and do what with my leg? Twist and cross my leg and pull the sail up so I can sew it by hand, because they didn't have what? They didn't have sewing machines back then. Okay. We're almost done on this page. Now we're on page 4. How do I flex my leg? When I flex my leg, if I flex my forearm or my upper arm, I do this, right? Biceps what? Brachii. How do I flex my leg? Biceps, it's not brachii. What's the big bone in my thigh called? What is this bone called? This one here, femur. So it's when we look at it, biceps femoris, and it's in the back. So when we start thinking about flexing my leg, the angle, you can't see me. We need a larger area. But when I'm trying to flex my leg, I need to bend just like so. So this is flexion of my leg. So they may say flexion of the knee. So where you see knee, think of leg as knee. This is extension of my leg, is what we have. So I extend my leg by using the muscles that are in the front. So I flexed my thigh, but when I pull up here, I've extended my leg. So I need the muscles that are down below. So these muscles here that extend your leg are the muscles in the front, and these are your quadriceps. So rectus femoris, vastus medialis, and lateralis, but they connect down here. They cross 2 joints. They're crossing your hip, they cross the knee. So they have one action on the thigh, they flex, and then they extend. So what we're doing tonight is a lot of work trying to understand, what do all these muscles do? And you kind of almost need to know where they attach, generally. So when I think of my quads, I'm going to think of my tibial tuberosity down in the tibia. And so I'll connect there, and then it'll allow me to flex my thigh and extend my leg. All right, let's go to number 5, page 5. Page 5 shows a muscle twitch. And a muscle twitch has what's called like a latent period. That's the time from when you get the acetylcholine into the sarcolemma. It takes time for this impulse to get to make an action potential, and for this action potential to actually allow the action potential to go across the T-tubules and then get into the sarcoplasmic reticulum and allow calcium to get to actin to form a bridge where actin is open. So I can now get a bridge, and then I get pulling across and I shorten the fiber. So what I would like you to do on page 5, there's 3 periods. A latent period, which is what takes time to build up force. Then you have a contraction in the middle, and then a relaxation. So if I'm looking, I have a flat area, and then I have a raised area, and then this area just kind of comes back down to where it was flat before. So it looks like a curve is what it actually looks like. You will label on the left-hand side, calcium release some SR, label that as 1. through 5. And if you go ahead, cross bridges are active, that's 2. Actin filament unblocked, 3. And so 1 through 5 is the first 5. And then the next 5 is calcium returning to SR, that's 6. And it goes down to power stroke occurs, that's 10. So in the latent period, these are the numbers that go in that box. Number 9, the impulse travels across the T tubules, correct? So that's going to be in that box. Number 4 has to happen before 9 occurs. So number 4 says acetylcholine binds the sarcolemma. So 4, then 9, and then calcium is released from the sarcolemma, that's 1. And then actin filament is unblocked, that's 3. So we should have number 4, number 9, number 1, and number 3. Is everybody with me? So in other words, we're trying to stimulate this muscle. The contraction is 2 and 10. Cross bridges are active, that's 2. And 10 is the power stroke. So power stroke means that actin and myosin are attached to each other. So if I'm going to hold something, what's going to allow me to keep that muscle contracted is these little filaments have slid over themselves and they're actively held there together. When I relax, 6, 7, and 8 occur. So what is 6, 7, and 8? Calcium returns to the SR, the cross bridge detach, and actin filament is reblocked. So those are the things that happen in a single twitch. And so in the table below, describe the physiological events. So what you need to know is, well, what's actually occurring when I look at this model and I see like a single contraction. Multiple twitches. What's interesting about a muscle, I can get a muscle to contract and then I can stimulate it again before it's totally relaxed, and I can have more power, and that's called wave summation. So in wave summation, I'm going to get more power. So I can go ahead and have one little muscle twitch, but before it totally relaxes, hit it again. Let me turn that off. So I have one muscle twitch, but if I stimulate it before it relaxes, I can get more power. That's why it says wave summation. So I've made it stronger is what actually has occurred. I can also have a muscle where the muscle is not shortening, but it was just held in place with tension on them. So let's say you were going to take a book. Let's say I'm going to take this book and I'm going to hold it out. The muscles are contracting and they're not shortening. If it was shortening, then I'd be bringing it towards me, right? Or I'd be raising it. But when I'm just holding it, I have actin and myosin held and it's in tetany. So basically I'm holding these fibers and I have force, but the force is not either greater or lesser, but it's doing whatever the job is. And then there's something called fatigue. Muscles get tired. So if I asked you to hold out your arm for 10 minutes with a bowling ball, after about 2 minutes, you would be fatigued. And so fatigue occurs when the muscle doesn't have enough energy or nutrients. So let's talk about these. As I increase stimulation, I do what's called wave summation, and the muscle power or the force becomes stronger. So when I increase the frequency of the stimulation of the muscle, I get more power is what actually happens. So that's why they say I have one wave, I stimulate it again and again and again, and it becomes, the force becomes much, much, much stronger. And that's what wave summation is. So wave summation, increased frequency of stimulation produces stronger. So I keep stimulating the muscle and I get stronger and stronger contraction. So I'll say that one more time. Wave summation. I stimulate the muscle more and more and more, and I get stronger and stronger contraction. What is number A, or letter A? If you increase the frequency of stimulation, the effect on the force goes up. I get more muscle force or power is what happens. Define tetany. Tetany is where the muscle is held in place and it's not either shortening or it's not lengthening, it's just holding right there. So tetany is where the curve is not a curve, but it's flat. And then fatigue is where the muscle loses its strength and power because it doesn't have enough nutrients, it doesn't have enough oxygen, doesn't have enough glucose. It's no longer able to sustain a contraction and it relaxes is what happens. And so fatigue is brought on by depletion of nutrients, of oxygen, of lactic acid and nutrients and stuff like that. All right, I think I've given you more than enough. This is probably the hardest lab because there's a lot of material. Hopefully last week you listened to me and got down the muscles of the head and some that we talked about, serratus anterior, because now we have another 20 some odd muscles. You can take in my last email, you can retake any of these quizzes for this test up through Friday as many times as you want. After Friday, any of those except for the last muscle 2, which is this night, you can't get new credit for. So if you want to go in and improve your quiz grade, go ahead and do it before Friday, because I want you to work on that old stuff. And then I want you to get into this new stuff, and you can take this new material and do the pre-test up until the test that's next week. So next week we have a test. I opened it up on Sunday. So it's open Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So it's open 3 days. And I've opened it for everybody for those 3 days because we're going to have people that can't take it Monday. They could take it Sunday. Some are going to say, I can't take it Monday. You can take it Tuesday. But after Tuesday at 11:30 at night, we should all have taken the test. Is everybody with me? All right. I'm sure there's going to be some questions, but I think we've already hit this pretty hard. You want to spend a little time looking at the, basically some of the muscles. Don't get caught up so much in just, oh, I can't remember this stuff. Start easy. The muscles, like for instance, what are the muscles, in the front of my thigh? What are they called? They're my quadriceps. They allow me to flex, but they extend my leg. What are the muscles in the posterior compartment? They're my hamstrings. They'll flex my leg and extend my thigh. Keep it simple. Let's use the KISS principle, Leah. We're going to go and make it simple as much as possible. But you want to spend some time with this is what you need. If you have questions or want to look at or come to lecture tomorrow night, I'll probably be thinking of different ways of bringing some of this material out. And maybe hearing it a second time wouldn't hurt some of you guys after you've actually looked at it. Okay? If you don't have any questions, then I'm going to call it a night. I'll be here. Make sure you retake any of the quizzes that you want to. And that test is going to be open next Sunday through Tuesday night. Okay? Have a good night. And
do we have a class since we're taking the test?
No class.
Okay.
No class. There's no, class at all. You just, it's an hour with 5 extra minutes.
Okay.
So you'll have 65. There'll be 50 questions, and it is multiple choice, multiple guess, right? Okay. I'll catch you guys later. All right. See you. Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. You're welcome.